Good day, Deep and Word family. Welcome to day 138 of our Bible study review. Today we're going through chapters 7 through 9 of the book of Jeremiah. Chapter 7 opens up with warning of a false trust in the physical temple. All right, Yahweh tells Jeremiah, stand in the gate of the temple and declare these words to the people. And this is what he says. Hear the word of Yahweh, all you of Judah who enter at these gates to worship Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, the Elohim of Israel. Amend your ways and your deeds, and I will cause you to dwell in this place. Do not trust in lying words, saying, the temple of Yah, the temple of Yah, the temple of Yah. For if you thoroughly amend your ways and your deeds, if you thoroughly execute justice between man and his neighbor, if you do not oppress the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, or walk after other gods to your harm, then I will cause you to dwell in this place and the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. He continues in verse 8 and he says, indeed, you trust in lying words that cannot profit. Shall you steal, murder, commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn incense to Baal, and walk after other gods whom you do not know, and come and stand before me in this house which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered so that we may do all of these abominations? He's essentially saying, you trust in this building, right? It's a picture of the house, right? And Israel is the picture of the wife. And he's saying, will you come into this house after going, and burning incense to Baal, which is a picture of the wife walking into another man's house and sleeping in his bed, right? Offering herself up to him. He's saying, shall you say that when you come into my house that you are delivered, right? You're using the blood of my covenant to say that now you have permission to live however you want? Does that not sound like the church today? I know you've heard it. You probably uttered it out of your mouth before you came to the truth of Torah. But have you not heard from those who say, I have the blood of Messiah, right? Jesus, Yeshua, and now I'm free to live however I want? Sin, the very definition of sin, is transgression of the Father's Torah. Torah means instructions for life. So do we take the blood of the covenant and say, now I can continue disobeying you? Absolutely not. Look, ancient Israel did the same thing. And modern day churchianity, that's what it teaches. That's what many believe, is that they have the blood of Messiah and now they are delivered. What are you delivered from? The thing you're supposed to be delivered from is sin, the grips of sin. That's what's supposed to be broken off of you, right? Not the Father's righteousness. Then Yahweh says, has this place become a den of robbers? He's like, I have seen everything with my own eyes, right? He seeks out the matters of hearts, but he sees everything. Nothing is hidden from him. And then he says, look, now I want you to go to the place at Shiloh where I first placed my name. And he goes, go and see what I did to that place, right? I utterly destroyed it because of the wickedness of my people, Israel. Now, if you don't remember what that is talking about, you'd have to go back to 1 Samuel chapter 4. And this is when the children of Israel had a false trust in the Ark of the Covenant, right? And so they would do all their wickedness. And when their enemies were overtaking them, they would then try to take out the Ark of the Covenant, like, here's our God, and our God is going to destroy you. And Yahuwah was like, you are ridiculous. This represents my presence. Am I going to come and conquer the enemy that you yourselves are lying in bed with? Absolutely not. I'm going to allow you to be destroyed. And Yahweh says, because you have performed all of these evils, and I've been merciful, I've sent my prophets to you, rising up early, speaking to you, but you would not listen. And so he tells Jeremiah, right here in verse 16, he says, as for you, do not pray for this people, nor lift up a cry, nor prayer for them, nor make intercession to me, for I will not hear you. He's telling Jeremiah, don't even try to pray for these people. Don't try to stand in the gap because they're not hearing. They're not hearing anything. He says, do you not see what they do in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? Their children gather wood, and the fathers kindle fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes for the queen of heaven. Now, the queen of heaven, most people, right, who grew up in Catholicism, they think this is Mary. And Mary is not the queen of heaven. There is no queen of heaven, period. There's the Father, there's the Son, and there's the Ruach. There is no woman, right, in the Godhead. Zero. Point blank, period. The queen of heaven that he's talking about is Ashtoreth, right? Or Ishtar, which is the so-called wife of Baal or Molech. This is what they were doing, right? They were worshiping the hosts of heaven, and these are wicked principalities that are up in the heavenlies. This is not Mary or Miriam, the mother of our Messiah. Absolutely not. She shows up when, right? This has absolutely nothing to do with Mary. This is Ishtar, right? Or Ashtoreth, the fertility goddess, right? We see that on Easter, which is Ishtar, Ashtoreth, right? You see them painting eggs and there's bunnies. And what does that have to do with the Passover lamb? Absolutely nothing. It doesn't. It's false worship, right? Putting the name of Messiah on top of Ashtoreth, right? The queen of heaven, fertility goddess, right? And this is what the children of Israel were doing because those are the signs of fertility, right? And we know that he is the true author of life. He is the one who gives life. He's the one who blesses the womb. And yet this is what they subjected themselves to: false worship, false deities. And sadly to say, the church is still doing it. If you want to give proper worship, right, spirit and truth, then you will worship the lamb, right? You will worship the Passover lamb on the Passover feast, which is biblical. That other stuff, that's not biblical. This is the same thing. This is the same thing that he's talking about, right? He's correcting his children. Many are waking up. And yes, I will sound the alarm. I will use this trumpet to tell my brothers and sisters the truth. That many, right, including myself, I grew up with false worship, and it was breaking Abba's heart. And he says doing these things provoked him to anger. They were pouring out drink offerings to other gods. And he says, do you continually provoke me? He goes, do you not provoke your own self to my wrath? And he's saying, I will pour out my wrath. Right here in verse 21. Thus says Yahuwah Sabuot, the Elohim of Israel, add your burnt offerings to your sacrifices and eat flesh. For I spoke not to your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. But this thing I commanded them, saying, obey my voice and I will be your Elohim. He says, when you first came out, I didn't ask you of anything other than just to hearken to my voice, and you still refuse. He says, you had no ears, right? You walked in the counsels and the imaginations of your evil hearts, and you went backwards, not forwards, right? That's the whole revelation of having a true repentant heart, right? Repent comes from the Hebrew word teshuvah. Teshuvah means to turn. It literally means that your face was once towards the enemy, and then you heard the voice of the Father, and you turned your back to the enemy, and now your face is towards the face of your one true Elohim, and now you're walking that way. But he's saying that's not what Israel has done, and that's not what most of the church is doing, that they profess Christ, but they're still walking in the enemy's camp. And he's saying, look, I'm going to deal with all of you who speak falsely, who speak my name, but your heart is far from me. So he tells Jeremiah, he goes, I'm sending you to speak against these people. He goes, you're going to speak, but they're not going to hear you. They're not going to correct their ways. They're going to continue walking in their abominations. And he tells Jerusalem, the city, right, to cut off your hair and to lament the city, right? Jerusalem sometimes is referred to as a woman, like a mother who is losing her children, right? And he says right here, for the sons of Judah have done evil in my sight, says Yahuwah. They have set their abominations in the house which is called by my name to pollute it. They have built high places in the valley of Topheth, which is in the valley of Ben Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire. That is Moloch worship. And sometimes it is also called Baal worship, okay? And we know that Ashtoreth is the wife of Moloch and Baal. And Yahuwah says, I never commanded you to do this. I never commanded you to take the fruit of your womb and sacrifice them to me. He's like, that's utterly demonic. That's an abomination, right? It was then and it still is. And the, modern day equivalent, it is abortion. That is murder. That is child sacrifice. It is an abomination. Absolutely it is, okay? And he says, now the valley that was called Ben Hinnom will now be called the valley of slaughter, because he says, they will bury in Topheth because there is no other place. The corpses of this people shall be food for the fowl of heaven and for the beasts of the earth. So he's saying this will be the valley of slaughter because the animals will come and now consume the bodies of Israel, right? Apostate Israel. And those who continue to walk in wickedness, even now, right? If you don't have a true repentant heart and you go against his Torah, his instruction for life, you will be found as being one of those in Revelation chapter 19, verse 17 through 18. I'm just going to leave it and you can go and read it, right? He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And the punishment is the same for all of those who go against his commands. And Yahuwah says at the very end of chapter 7 that he will cause the voice of the bride to stop, the voice of the bridegroom to stop. So there will be no more, joyful sounds of, weddings taking place. He says everything that would make a joyful noise, laughter, all of that will cease. He says your sin has consumed you and you will pay for this. And he says joy will cease from your land. Chapter 8 opens up and he says, and in those days when this destruction comes upon Jerusalem, right, which is Babylon, he says, the bones of the kings, the nobles, the priests, everyone, how they usually have proper burials. He says all of their bones will, just be out in the field. And he says they'll be out there like dung. And he says you'll be out there in the midst with all of the host of heaven who you worshiped. And he says no one is going to properly bury you. And then he moves on and he says, why is it that my people are always, right, in this perpetual state of backsliding? They never have this, steadfast love for me, that they always step back. And when they do, they step back further and further and further, creating more and more generational curses after curses after curses. Yah continues to say that his people never truly repent, right? We've already talked about that. It says no one really turns their face towards me. Their back is continually at my face. And he says, now I'm going to turn my back towards them and they're going to see that blessing is truly removed from them, right? They take confidence, trust, right? Their rest is in false peace, right? Their false peace is in worshiping other gods, right? And taking up political alliances with other kingdoms. And he's saying, all of you comfort each other in lies. And he says, this is going to come to a stop. And since they superficially cover their people saying peace, peace, when there is no peace, it's all superficial. This is what he has to say about their fake peace. All right, verse 15, we looked for peace, but no good came, and for a time of health, but there was trouble. The snorting of his horses was heard from Dan. The whole land trembled at the sound of the neighing of the strong ones. So Dan is a part of the 10 northern tribes, but they have already been scattered. But he's saying that's how far away that it is, but they will hear the horses neighing from the land of Dan all the way from Jerusalem, right? And he says, for they have come and devoured the land and all that is in it, the city and all who dwell in it. See, I send serpents against you, adders which will not be charmed, and they will bite you, declares Yahuwah. And then we see that Jeremiah mourns for his people. Yahuwah already told him, do not intercede for them. Don't lift up a prayer. Don't try to cover them anymore. He goes, I just want you to declare my words to them because they are far past being recovered. All right. And so these are the words of Jeremiah being sorrowful. He says, my sorrow is beyond healing. My heart is faint within me. Listen, the cry of the daughter of my people from a far country. Is not Yahuwah in Zion? Is not her king in her, right? And the king is not upon the throne of her heart, right? He has left because she left him, right? And so then it goes on talking about how they need to be healed. It says right here in verse 21, for the brokenness of the daughter of my people, I am broken. I mourn. Dismay has taken hold of me. Is there no balm in Gilead, right? And balm is a healing agent. Is there no physician there? Why then has not the health of the daughter of my people been recovered, right? He's saying all of the, natural things that bring healing to the body, they are all present here, but they are still not healed. And it is because it is an inward issue. They are wicked and they need to be healed by turning their faces back to their Elohim. Chapter 9 opens up, and this can be Jeremiah speaking from his heart, but it could also be the instruction of Yahuwah speaking at the same time. I'm not sure, so I'm just going to read it. It says, oh, that my head were waters and my eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place for wayfaring men, that I may leave my people and go from them, right? So you see that they had a trust in the temple, a false trust in the temple, and there's no righteous man, in the temple. And we see that either Jeremiah or Yahweh is saying, I wish that I could find one righteous man like in the wilderness, right? He's like, I would dwell back in a tent, a temporary dwelling place, if it were for a righteous man with an upright heart. He's saying, I really don't care about this place of stone, right? This beautiful place of adornment when the people are filthy. Then there's this instruction that goes out that tells every man to be on guard, right? You can't trust your neighbor. You can't trust your own brother. There's nothing but wickedness and deceit, right? They speak peaceably to you in your face, but, behind your back, they have a plan that is against you, right? They're conspiring against you while speaking these candy-coated words to you. That's a proper warning, right? Because if they will do it to him, right? If they don't have this correct, then there's no way that this would be correct. This represents our relationship with man, loving your neighbor, but they don't have this right. So this for sure is not going to be right. So he's saying, be on guard, trust no one, because they don't reverence him. And if they don't love him and guard his commands, there's no way that they would respect your life, right? There's no way that they would, respect the image that is on you, because they don't respect him. Yahuwah continues to declare that he is going to bring destruction upon this land because they continued with their Baal worship. And then he tells the women, right, to set up a lamentation for her children because, right, the voices of children will not be heard anymore. They will be destroyed. Everything, right? Because we've already seen in the previous chapters that the women are getting their children to bring the wood, right? While they're kneading the cakes for the Queen of Heaven. The whole family is involved. It's a family affair to, have an affair on Yahuwah. Verse 22, speak, thus says Yahuwah, the carcasses of men shall fall as dung upon the field. So he's reiterating this again, that your bodies will be like poop, essentially, in the field, right? As nothing, no value. And as the sheaf after the harvester, and no one shall gather them. Thus says Yahuwah, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. Let not the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him who glorifies glory in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am Yahuwah, who exercises loving kindness, justice, righteousness in the earth. For these things I delight, says Yahuwah. He says, take up your confidence and your trust in who I am and my character, and in nothing else. And let's finish up the rest of today's reading with verses 25 and 26. And it says right here, the days are surely coming, says Yahuwah, that I will punish all who are circumcised and yet uncircumcised. What is he saying, right? The original covenant sealed them in their flesh, right? Pulling back the foreskin is a picture of you pulling back your old identity so that your spirit man could live, right? And so they're sealed. The promises were sealed in their flesh. But he's saying, since you have an uncircumcised heart, right? You still have a heart condition issue, that your heart is still far from me. You do all the religious things, but you're still in spirit defiled before me. And he's saying, I will judge you as though you were a Gentile, right? Because you're not serving me with a true heart. Gentile, it just means that you're someone from another nation, that you weren't naturally born of Israel. But those of us who, are born of his spirit and we are grafted in the body of Messiah, right? There's neither Jew nor Gentile, right? It's the one new man that is created in Messiah, because he's the high priest and he is the one whose blood that our Father sees. And he says, okay, well, I can throw out the trials and the cases against you, right? But if you are a natural born Israelite and you're circumcised in the flesh, but you still don't serve him with all of your heart, he says, I'm going to punish you like you are a Gentile, like you're outside of the covenant because you're acting like it, right? You're not truly mine because your heart is not mine. He goes, I don't care about your flesh. We know that the flesh is going to pass away, right? So please don't boast and brag on your DNA, because if you have the DNA from the original people but don't serve him, you ain't safe. Verse 26, right? He lumps up Judah with these other nations. He says, Egypt, Judah, Edom, the children of Ammon, Moab, and all who dwell in the wilderness, who clip their hair on their temples, for all these nations are uncircumcised. He's saying Judah is uncircumcised. Judah is acting like a Gentile. And all of the house of Israel are uncircumcised of heart, right? So it's a heart posture issue, right? And the question to you is, have you given all of your heart over to him? Or is there still, something else on the throne upon your heart, because he's not going to be second place to anything or anyone. Our Messiah said, if you love anyone more than you love me, you're not worthy of me. All right. And so the same was true in the beginning, and the same is true in the end. He is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Get your heart right. Deep in Word family, that's all that I have for you today. Until tomorrow, Yah bless.